Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. Just so you know, I may freeze up. Something's going on with the phone. It's giving me this thing where it keeps wanting to time out. So I'm not sure what's going on. So we're going to just keep doing this. So if it happens to freeze, don't worry. The show is going to go live and you're going to see all the other people. It just won't be me on the camera. So don't worry about that. What we have with us tonight is a founder of, I want to say it's OPUS. He's going to correct me if I'm saying that wrong. It's the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. Lester Velez. He's also the author of a book that we will be discussing about. And this is going to be one and I'll give you the title here because, as you can tell, I'm incredibly prepared. I can't find the piece of paper that I had written down from in front of me. Well, I've been messing around my phone. So here's the thing. We were going to go live right now, and we're going to get Lester Velez on here. We're going to get right to talk because we're going to be talking about things paranormal. The stuff that they deal with through that organization, and just kind of get everybody get to know Lester, talk about his book. We're going to have a good time, and hopefully I'm going to figure out this thing with my phone, so that way it's not a constant thing with me up here tapping the screen. So everybody sit back, enjoy, and we will see you next. Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name is Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is why I need you. Then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, we got Chris, Brian with us. Gentlemen, we're back, so hopefully it's, I'm gonna know. I was messing with it during the intro, so we'll see. It just might be I constantly have to come up here and touch it and keep it moving.
He doesn't want to hear the problem with his phone. It's an Android. That's why he has the problem. Yes. But he don't want to hear it.
Yeah, listen here. I don't have to pay for updates to Apple software constantly to keep things from breaking down.
The problem with Android is like 15 different OSs at once. Hey, Lester, welcome.
Exactly. We got Lester Velez with us, and hey, I got it. His book is The Unknown Other, the existential proposition of alien contact, and you can find that on Amazon. You can purchase that right there in paperback, and get it via Kindle. So, and did I actually say the acronym correct? Was it OPUS?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Absolutely correct. And by the way, I've never seen Bela Lugosi with a beard.
That's very cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've never seen that particular movie. That's really interesting.
So yeah, that was one. It's just our former partner with us. He made that intro for us, and I said really liked it. We had another one that worked, had a couple of different lights, so he laid it out completely different, and I liked it. It turned out really good.
You know, Bela Lugosi and I have a commonality. We're both Hungarians.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Both my parents were born in Hungary, and I'm first generation here in the United States, born in Connecticut. And so
you know, fucking now.
What's that?
The fucking now.
Oh yeah, again.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like you're swearing at the guest.
Yeah, well,
fucking now means wooden spoon.
Wooden spoon.
Yeah.
You're in trouble, you get the wooden spoon. My wife's
right. My mother was very good with that.
Yeah, my wife's father is directly from Budapest.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He's from Hungary, and we just lost Craig. See, that's why you don't eat a night. You want an apple.
That's wild. Go get me the fucking no. You're like, what? Pow!
Well, it's funny because when her grandmother came over from Hungary, she did something wrong when she, and she said, "Give me the phone now," and they were like, "Why is Grandma cursing?" So, but yeah, I used to bust my father-in-law's chops with the Hungarian.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I guess we're going to soldier on without Craig momentarily.
Craig back.
Here
right
he's back.
now.
He's back.
There he is.
Here we
And
go.
he's in a position.
I mean, funny.
Use your son's phone.
Ta-da! I don't know. In that one, that was my fault. I was in the process of it was starting to do that, and I hit leave.
Oh,
so
I dropped myself. It had nothing to do with technology. It was just simply I fat fingered a button, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, there I go. Go.
So small funny story is when we first started, it would have been a whole lot of dead air. Craig would have been like, you couldn't talk till I got back. I would just freeze up. Craig is gone. I'd be here like, oh shit, well, what do I say now?
Okay, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. So I'm a UFO guy anyhow. So
yeah, no. So we have, it's like I said, I was really looking forward to this one because it's like we don't talk a lot. We haven't covered a whole lot when it comes to UFOs, UFO abductions and stuff. So I just wanted to we'll get the basics out of the way. Sure. What was your prime, goal when you set out to create OPUS?
Well, you have to go back in time quite a ways. When I was 11 years old, living in Norwalk, Connecticut, one late October evening, I was coming back in the house after feeding my dog, and there was this object hovering over a tree line, and it was like oval in shape, kind of whitish and silvery in color, and it was not making any sound, and it kept moving very slowly. It was definitely not a balloon. The bottom line is it scared the crap out of me, and I ran in the house and tried to get my father to come out, and by the time he came out, it was gone. And he said, "Oh, it's probably just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud." And I didn't buy that, and I went to the library soon thereafter and started reading books on UFOs. And George Adamski was the big star back in those days in the late 50s. And so I was really into that. And then after a while, girls became a little bit more important in my life. And I kind of forgot about the whole UFO. And, went off to, graduated from high school, went off to college, went through the ROTC program, and became a second lieutenant in the Army artillery group. Subsequently got married, had a couple of kids, and lived in Connecticut for a while. In 1985, I had the opportunity to buy into a company in San Jose, California, and I did, and went out there, and I picked up the San Jose Mercury News, as it was called at the time, and there was going to be a gentleman by the name of Stanton Freeman talking about UFO, the government cover-up, and so it was like somebody threw a switch, and that whole UFO thing came back in a big way for me. And so I went to see him, expecting to see a handful of people at the San Jose City College, and the auditorium was packed. And he gave one of his inimitable lectures, and I was really psyched. And on my way out, there was a table in the foyer that MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, had, and they were talking about this journal that they published on a monthly basis. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to get the journal. And I started to, read about these cases and everything. And after a while, that wasn't enough for me. And I decided to take their field investigator course and passed that and started to investigate cases. And almost without exception, the cases that I investigated were not only people telling me about their sightings, but they were telling me that they had contact with non-human intelligences. And that kind of blew my mind because, I was kind of a nuts and bolts kind of a guy. And when these people started telling me about their experiences, it was like, holy crap, this is amazing stuff. And these people would tell me that they had been to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they were told that, hey, no, you don't have a psychopathology. You're not insane. You're not crazy. So then what? So these people then asked me, did I know of other people having similar circumstances in their lives? And I said, yes, I do. And the next thing I know, I'm facilitating a support group in my office in San Jose. And that's when things really got interesting. And shortly thereafter, I was interviewed by a reporter from the Monterey Coast Weekly paper. And they were talking about, what I was doing for MUFON and the investigations that I did. And I got a call from a woman that happened to read that article. And she's asked me, is it possible to understand what's going on with her brain waves when she's in contact with these non-human intelligences? So I told her, I at that point, I didn't know what to tell her. And but then she said she was working with an emergency room doctor down in Carmel. And I had a doctor friend of mine, Dr. Eugene Lipson, who actually co-founded our organization subsequently. And I said, why don't we go down there? You can meet this doctor and we can find out a little bit more about this woman. So we went down there this one Saturday afternoon, and we walked into her house, and there was a picture on the wall. And in the picture, she's standing on the back of a large vessel. And I asked her what that was all about. And she says, well, I was helping these treasure hunters in the Caribbean. And I said, really? How were you doing that? She says, well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down. Well, that, of course, blew our minds right away. Subsequently, we found out that after a near-death experience, she became very psychic and started to contact these, off-earthly entities. And so the rest of the afternoon turned out to be incredible. I mean, she was telling us stuff about ourselves that there was no possible way that she could know this, because we didn't know her from Adam. And we found
cool.
that after a near-death experience, she became very psychic. And so Gene and I came away from that afternoon and saying, how can we possibly help people? And that's when OPUS was kind of hatched. And in 1994, we officially became a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And we've been going strong ever since.
Nice. Yeah. So, man, I don't think I could have done much better at trying to give the whole thing. I mean, you actually made it sound so much better than the boring, just like, here's what they did. Yeah. It's a really nice looking website too. I said it, I had it up on the screen while you were discussing that there. Showing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Really well done. It's one of those things, I think we've talked about it in several shows too, where there's a huge difference between just saying that somebody has to believe no matter what they tell you, and opening up a place where people can actually tell their stories. Right. It is, and that's one of these things. It's like, it looks like, yeah, when you have like those organizations, it's great because if somebody has an encounter, it doesn't matter where it is, you need to tell somebody about it. You need to have a place where you can explain these things. You can go through those. The ones that I think people get lumped in with is, we've always said these things. People that claim that they've got a family of Bigfoot living in the backyard. They're the only ones that can see them. They're the only ones that come and talk to them. I have dinner with Grays every single night. Their favorite foods are this, and this. It's stuff. And you're like, well, do you have a photograph?
Strawberry ice cream.
Yeah. And you're like, do you have any proof? No. They told me I can't ever record anything. I can't do anything. And so you have these people, and that's the problem, is then they get somebody that would be just driving along and all of a sudden sees a light, has missing time. And those people all get lumped together. And I think there's a lot of people that are afraid to talk because they don't want to be seen as that crazy person that they think is just, looking for a thing. And that's why I think it's so important to have groups like this where it doesn't seem there's no agenda behind it. We're not trying to tell you what you had. Tell us our story.
Exactly.
Here we are.
You're right on. it's the kind of place where it's a neutral place. It's non-judgmental. Uh, these people are able to tell their stories. We have three different things that we provide for people. One is a confidential online support group. We're almost at 400 people from around the world.
That's awesome.
I've even got one person from Iran, believe it or not, that's in the support group. South America, Australia, Europe, Africa, that are basically able to tell their stories, ask their questions, and they're literally corresponding 24/7 because of where they are in the world. We also have a referral network of mental health practitioners, hypnotherapists, psychotherapists, that if a person is looking for that kind of assistance, we can provide that. And then we have a triage group, which we call our E.S.T, which is our Experiencer Support Team, which are people that are very familiar with many of the paranormal topics and are able to talk to these people when they come to us and find out, what it is that they're looking for and how we can possibly help them. And the bottom line is, sure, we do get people, every once in a while that come to us that definitely need some kind of mental help assistance. And so we tell them exactly that. And it's important that they get that kind of help. But most of these people have gone to a psychiatrist or psychiatrist and find out that they don't have a psychopathology. They're not crazy, but they can't talk to their family members. They can't talk to their coworkers. They can't talk to clergy. And so what the hell do they do? And it puts them in a very, very precarious situation, because trauma, which is a characteristic of this phenomena, certainly in the beginning stages, is something that, unless it continues, a lot of these people come to a place, like a very large majority of the people come to a place of accepting what's going on and being comfortable with it. And then in the final stages, when it stops, it's almost like the Stockholm syndrome, where people are saying, well, what the hell happened? Why aren't you coming for me anymore? That
What
kind of thing.
I was going to ask you. I'm glad you said that, because that's actually one of the questions I'm going to ask you is how, like, the percentage of people that come here and say, I've had this experience, and we've had it a couple of times. What do people do? I mean, do they have like that hangover? Do they have that withdrawal? Do they have something along the lines of like, what did I do wrong? Why am I never being visited anymore? Are they done with me? Have they, why did the aliens ghost me? It's basically, lack of better.
Ghosting,
yeah.
Exactly. We can talk about poltergeist activity too. That's a part of this.
Yeah.
But it's something that, for whatever reason, that they stop. Whether it's if it's a female, they're not producing eggs anymore, and so they're not needed in that regard, because that's one of the things that many people talk about, that eggs have been extracted from females or semen from males, and in my case, I had a vasectomy, so they don't fucking come to me anymore.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended.
So do you mean we could possibly be running around here with alien children that we don't know about? Like
100%. I just want to get my alien children's social security number so I can claim on my taxes. That's all I want.
No, because when you
I hope
do
I
that,
have 25 of them.
No, because when you do that, then child support will be looking for you. Alien child support.
Child support.
Yeah, some intergalactic child agencies coming after you.
Hey, well, I'm with the intergalactic child support agency.
You have money.
17.
This is something that we talk about as far as the hybrid situation, where semen and eggs are taken and is melded with the alien DNA, and these hybrids are created. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a book by Helen Luttrell called Rachel's Eyes, where her daughter had gone to school with a hybrid, and she was very different looking, and the military brought special food for her to eat. This is a fascinating book, and one of the members of our board, June Steiner, actually did the hypnosis work on her, and it's an absolutely fascinating story. So anyway, there's so many parts of this phenomena that are absolutely intriguing, and we just truly don't understand it, fully.
It's interesting because I've been researching, investigating for 45 plus years, a variety of subjects, but UFOs are primary on the list.
Mhm.
And I started a group called the New York State UFO Project because with a friend of mine, Al Santariga, we did this because we had a live meeting setting, and we were getting people coming down that were scared out of their minds. They read a little bit of UFOs and really, I mean, like really scared, freaked out, and they didn't know where to go, what to do. And there was a calling for it to help people. So we created a forum that was with like-minded people, no judgment, and we would do it in the Yonkers portion of New York, the start of the month, and like the third week of the month, we'd go to Red Hook, New York, which is up by the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to have people coming in. We actually had people, well, we'll say we were visited, and there was a gentleman that used to visit, really nice guy, Nordic looking. And when we would give presentations and help people that are having experiences, they don't know where to go. And it took these people a year to open up because it's a trusting thing. There was one time we're doing a presentation, was really interesting. And the guy, I'm in front, when we're talking, and I'm looking at this one guy who's always there, really nice guy named John, and he was vibrating. And I caught this, and I was, I saw it. I mean, he was literally like vibrating. It's no other way to say it. Like every once in a while, he would vibrate. And at the end of the meeting, I went up to my buddy Al, and I'm like, "Dude, you see John?" I mean, it's like, "Yeah, I saw him sitting there." I'm like, "No, dude, he was vibrating." So we have we're always there to help people, like you guys are doing. I think what you do is fantastic. We always try to put people in the right, give them a source to go to, and I'm definitely going to recommend people that I know to go to your organization as well for help, because it's important. No one's really doing what we do, or
and I appreciate that very much. And the thing that you guys are doing is very important, that you have a show like this and that you're bringing people on like me to get the word out that there is something going on, folks, and that we need to address this in a more meaningful way. So thank you for what you guys do, and I appreciate being here tonight with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about your organization is it's tiered and organized properly, and without the fluff. With you have people that a list of people that can handle them for different situations. And yes, we have had some people that need more psychological help and possibly regulation of medicines. Then they're actually not seeing anything. I mean, we take whatever they say, and it's all confidential, of course.
Yeah.
But we try to steer them in that direction, and we do the best we can. I mean, this, folks, if you need some help, I mean, I'm always available, but this is a fantastic organization to go,
Yeah, real quick, Chris, hold it. I just want to show people like what he was talking about. You see on the screen, it's not one of those complicated ones where you got to scroll all the way to the bottom. You got to find something that's like contact thing.
Right.
There's literally a blue banner right here that says request support. And then when you scroll down just a little way, request support. There's not this whole thing where, and there's even on the bottom here, if you finally get there, is support. I mean, there's 3 different locations just on the main page alone that show you if you need to reach out, click. I mean, it's not hard to find.
And one of the important, thank you for that very much. These organizations exist around the country and around the world. And the sad part of it about it is the fact that we don't communicate with one another as we probably could. And one of the things this coming year and next year that I'm going to try to do is to connect with as many groups as possible to really understand. There's a network that we can create, and then eventually maybe have a conference where we all come together and we all talk about this kind of thing. I mean, sure, there's a lot of people that have written books, me included, about this topic. But the bottom line is, I think it's important that we not only bring in, uh, people like myself, but also the scientific community. I have a business background. I don't have a scientific background. Um, but so I think it's important that we do just that. And of course, the federal government now with the A.A.R.O. That Kirkpatrick is, heading up now, they're talking about bringing in more scientists to understand the UAP phenomena. And so what's the next thing that's going to happen? Next thing that's bound to happen is that they're going to start looking at these people that say that they've had contact with non-human intelligences, like who's driving these damn things.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
little phrase.
yeah. Chris, you had a question before I
Right.
go on with that one.
So for the people that may be wondering in the audience, what if you report something once and you like, well, you should seek, mental health, or can they continue to report things, or after a while y'all just lump them in with the crazies and they stop responding to these people, or it's an ongoing dialogue? Like I say, hey, I got a Bigfoot in my backyard. I want to talk about him, and then a couple weeks later, I say I seen a Bigfoot on my lawn. So do you continue to reach out to these people, or since it's
Well, usually when these people contact us, they have a specific need, whether they want to be part of the support group, um, or do they want to reach out to a mental health practitioner or a hypnotherapist or something like that. So what we do is then have them talk to one of our triage people, and then we find out specifically what it is that they're looking for. Once we ascertain that, then if they want to be in the support group, they can talk about anything. They can talk about as many Bigfoot contacts as they want. We don't uh, curtail that kind of a conversation. Uh, but it's funny thing, you know, we talk about the paranormal, which encompasses a lot of different areas, whether it's Kundalini awakening, poltergeist activity, angels, demons, you name it. Um, uh, that we just uh, have been mostly people coming to us that have contact with non-human intelligence, whether it's the grays, or it's the mantid type, or the reptilian type, or the Nordic type, or military type, or you know any combination thereof, and beyond, that people are willing to talk about. What we found, matter of fact, we've done some research projects. The first project that we did was started in 2007, when I went to MUFON and told them that they were missing the boat on working with these abductees. And they were basically a nuts and bolts type of an organization. And so I convinced them that people calling them, they could be funneled to me. So I was getting calls directed from MUFON to OPUS to handle these people that were claiming that they had contact with non-human intelligences. And then they asked me to set up a committee to really do a research project. So we had 71 people that claimed that they had contact with non-human intelligences, and 51 people that were a control group. And so we did this research program with a couple of psychologists, and we found out some pretty interesting things. Number one is the fact that these people did not have a psychopathology. They weren't fantasy prone. They did have childhood trauma of some sort that caused them to dissociate in a way, not that it was psychopathological, but it just caused them to view the world in a different way, and they were more open to side effects. But so and then subsequently, we're in the process of doing the second phase of the Omega-4 study, where the first phase was we went out to a therapist and had them do a survey to try to understand what modality do they utilize in working with these people to help them. And one of the things we found out was that the majority of these therapists, when these people came to them, that they had contact with grays. The second thing was orbs. That was the second biggest thing that they talked about. And the third thing was interdimensionals. And the fourth thing was poltergeist activity. So this whole paranormal field is there's so many different facets to it. And that, you know, you just can't say that this thing over here has nothing to do with this thing over there. They're really got some really interesting connections going on.
Yeah, there's a huge connection. It's like there's a huge line, and I'm not going to talk about my discoveries and whatever, but something very interesting when a lot of paranormal or poltergeist activity associated with a lot of these abductions, and it's not necessarily poltergeist as you would know it. It very well could be you're being visited and they're in a spectrum you cannot see, and they're there in the room and they're just moving stuff around. You know, they're playing with stuff or moving it. So some of that poltergeist stuff you have to be very discerning about, because there's a big difference between a poltergeist and entities that are there to take you in a little bit or observe you, that may be just messing around with your stuff.
And one of our things, I'm going to ask that question here in 1 second, but I just want to kind of follow up. The part I really liked the way when you specifically said the words control group. I've really been talking with a lot of people the importance of the scientific method when it comes to doing these things. How critical it is to have control things in some of your research. Just because you saw an orb float across the screen, that is not concrete proof that you captured an entity, you've captured a thing. You have to go through, and it's so important to have like a buddy with you that's filming the same thing. And you want to make sure you're both not using a Galaxy S, the 22. You want to have like an iPhone. You want to have different tech, because if that same thing happens, you have something there. There's something there. You can control interference. If something's pixelating, then you could start to figure out, okay, why did it do it on my phone, not yours? You have these different things that you can look at. And that's the point. That's the important thing, is when you have these control groups, you can have some sort of basis on your experiment, because then if there's a generalized temperature, like if you go in, like we're talking about poltergeist, if you go into a room and the ambient temperature is 82 degrees, well, now we could try to figure out, why am I reading 82 and you're right next to me and you're reading 79? Why did it suddenly get colder next to you? And that's where it's important. If you hadn't taken the ambient temperature of the room, then it would just be a random number that you threw out there. I'm 79.
The problem with that, though, Craig, is there's discrepancies between the technology that exists already, temperature-wise, video-wise, whatever. It would have to be a bigger spread. But something very interesting and technology that very few people are using, and it's very interesting in the paranormal side of stuff. All those features on your car for safety when you get too close to a car or something's coming or it's blocking and a beep, beep. Well,
like Teslas.
Well, no, it's not just Teslas. Every car, it's just a little.
No, Tesla has one. Yeah, I know it.
And what happens is, what people don't realize is, you'll be someplace and it starts going off for no reason, and you'd say, "Oh, this thing's malfunctioning." Maybe not, because I've noticed that certain intersections, certain spots where they used to list the number of people hurt, injured, or killed, they try to scare you with it. In New York, they did this. Every time you got to the intersection at a certain point, you started getting, and it was, different areas. It would change a little bit. You may very well be picking up on something, a residual energy that's there, paranormal wise, that you would never see with your eyes, but your car technology is picking up on the energy field.
Well, that's very true. I mean, each one of us has a range as far as our sight and our hearing. And some people have a different range. It may be wider or maybe more narrow. And same thing with hearing. And that's why a lot of times when you have people, a couple or a group of people, one person may be observing a UFO and nobody else is seeing it. Well, what's going on with that person's ability as far as their vision. They have a broader range for whatever reason, and I think that has a lot to do with why some of these people see things and others don't. And it's basically a physical attribute that's happening.
Right.
And then, yeah, and then a question right there too is what are the possibility that some of these beings portraying to be aliens could be possible, like the fallen angel?
Well, absolutely. I think anything that you could possibly think of is possible. You know, you go back to the Old Testament, and and they were described as angels and demons and things of that nature. But today, the descriptions are different. They're aliens, they're grays, they're mantids, they're reptilians. So those might certainly be described as demons today, or years ago. So these kind of descriptions are all. I mean, the ancient Romans talked about the shining shields in the sky. So there's many descriptions of these things, but of course they weren't called flying saucers back then. So what and these entities, a lot of them were called gods, because there was no other description that they could put on these people because of their abilities.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that you mentioned too, that's and just the way you brought that up too, because that's one of those things. We've had several guests on too that talk about UFOs in the Bible, and that's many of the stories, like Ezekiel and the fiery
Right.
chariot is one of those. I mean, I use that one. Does anybody honestly believe Ezekiel just hopped in a chariot, which like that, and the horses just suddenly burst into flames, and he just rode off into the sky? I'm like, or was he? But does it make more sense that he was in some sort of craft that took off? And that's how they described it. I mean, I'm the same way with Jesus. It makes so much more sense that possibly he was taken up into a craft other than him floating away like a helium balloon. All right, guys, bye.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll see you later. As he just floats off in the sky and you just see him just distant into the distance. It makes so much more sense that one minute he's there, and like Star Trek, he's taken up and takes off.
Yeah, I mean, shows like Ancient Aliens talks about this all the time. That this goes back eons, and that they were described as different types of things in those days. But the bottom line, if you look at the attributes of the situation, it certainly seems like that these are aliens of some sort. Whether they're extraterrestrial, whether they're interdimensional, whether they're time travelers, whether there are military, or all the above, which I kind of think that's what's going on.
Something you mentioned interesting, and with the near death experiences, and this also taps into what Craig, you were just saying. When you have a life-changing experience, that usually opens you up in your every aspect of your life, spiritually, in your consciousness, everything. Certain things that were plaguing you or placking your ability, that's God-given ability, fall away because it just dies off, and then you're kind of reborn. And this is why a lot of people have psychic abilities. I mean, I've had my own gifts and abilities, but once the heart attack came, I'm getting downloads like they're coming out of, and they're not always great. And it's very interesting. But when you were saying about some of these people in the past, when you vibrate at a higher frequency, when you're using more of your brain like Jesus has, and these extraterrestrials do, and they're able to do things, go through solid material, it may not have been the UFO, which I do believe Ezekiel was, but maybe they are able to actually float, and go through some of the gravitational pull. So
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke talks about the stuff that basically these things are magic. Uh, but
Yeah.
but in actuality, it's based in science and the ability to do things like that. You hear about the so many people being abducted and going through walls or going through ceilings. I worked on a case of a young boy. Who actually came to me years and years after his incident, where he was taken through a window and his blanket got stuck in the window.
Yep.
And the military came by and took out the whole window in his house. And
Yep.
it's a remarkable story. And I mean, so how is that possible? I mean, we just don't understand that technology as yet. And I think that the latest thing I heard the other day was that we should be much farther along right now as far as our understanding of gravity and our ability to do things of that nature. And the reason why we're not is that a couple that were trapped in the Holocaust and did not survive were supposed to have a son that was going to uh, be able to understand gravity and recreate that process of creating it. Um, and these are the kind of things that you wonder how people can understand things like that. How can they come along? I mean, these psychics that have these abilities to not only see the past and the present, but the future. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the case of a woman doctor that was on a kayaking trip down in South America, and she went over a falls and got trapped underneath the falls for over 30 minutes. And during that period of time, she met these entities that were super loving. I mean, she had this overwhelming feeling of love. She didn't want to go back, and they told her, no, 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 you have to go back. You have things to do. And then they also told her that her son, who was little at that point, when he turned 18, would have a tragic accident and die. And so, of course, that never stuck with her in any way, shape, or form. And so she got out of that falls and survived. And later on, when her son did turn 18, and she never mentioned anything to him, um, he got into a car accident and died.
Wow.
And so,
Yeah. It's
here's these entities telling her that, but then psychics have the same ability. And there was a woman by the name out of Croatia or someplace like that in Europe, Baba Yaga,
yep.
that predicted all these things going on. She predicted the World Trade Center, and she says now, or one of the last things she said before she croaked was the fact that in 2027 we're going to be hit by an asteroid.
Yep.
And it's going to be like lights out, folks. So if you guys
It's
got any plans, you
yeah,
So
better,
she was.
so,
you
so
better start
just
working.
something, a little comment on that. Something I know, and you're able to do it, and this is how I explain it to people: is when you actually become a higher being or higher entity of yourself, and we call it vibrating. And because you're different levels, and as you get higher, the little things don't bother you. If you can get yourself out and actually see what's going on in the Akash record, the whole thing, if you want to call it that, the main source of information. Time is an Earth construct.
Yeah.
So anything outside this planet doesn't have time. The reason why these beings are able to travel to and fro and back and forth in different time periods and come back at a certain spot is because when you die and you go to heaven, wherever you want to call it, you know what's going to happen. You see past, present, and future. It all exists at the same time. This is what these psychics have the ability to do.
Mm-hmm.
They can tap into this, and they can see based on individuals past, present, and future. And it's very interesting because I've been able to remote view forward. I've been able to remote view backwards. I call it remote viewing. Our psychic for a team says you're psychic, whatever. But you see things that are supposed to take place. The one thing I don't see is how it affects when one timeline is affected by another timeline. That's a different story. So it's pretty interesting. Thank you for the 2027. I'll just get my stuff going now. Guys,
The
party,
bunker, so
pizza for everybody.
Yeah, some good pizza from the East Coast.
You do like the grasshopper thing. What are you talking about? We got 4 years to still party it up. We don't have to worry about this.
yeah. The way
Oh
people
my
are
God!
now.
No, that's a good point. I've worked with some psychics and I've interviewed psychics, and because at OPUS we have a interview series, and one of the gals is out of Canada, Patricia Mona, and she's really incredible, and she's worked with the Canadian Mounted Police, and she's worked with trying to find people, find bodies, and things of that nature, and able to tell the future. She told me about a case about a woman that came to her, and for one reason, and all of a sudden she stopped her and said, "Look, I got to tell you something about your son. You got to really watch him. He's got some really major issues, and he could hurt himself." And the woman said, "Oh, I know about that, and we're trying to deal with it." And the next time the woman came back, the son offed himself, and so she saw that kind of thing, and so these are the kind of things that just blows your mind. And you talked about dying and going to heaven, or where the hell you're going to be going. And but we don't die. Our energy, our soul, our spirit doesn't die. It goes on. And one of the things that a lot of these people that have had contact with these intelligences talk about the fact that reincarnation is a major factor of how the universe works. And one of the support group meetings, a person told me that, "Hey, I've seen you before." And I said, "Really? At a UFO conference?" "No, I saw you on board the craft." I said, "Really?" And I kind of blew it off. And it was like a year and a half later that somebody came up to me, and after the support group meeting, I said, "I've seen you before." And I said, "Really? The same thing, at a UFO conference?" No. You were sitting on this bench naked, and you were freaking out on board the craft, and they told me to go over to you to calm you down. So at that point, I decided to go get regressed. And so I had
Awesome.
3 regressions, and I didn't find out anything along that type of a line, but I had multiple past lives. And then
there's a reason for that.
subsequent to that, somebody told me, it says, "Well, maybe somehow this person did see you, but it was in a past life, and that's when you got abducted." But my latest theory, okay, here we go. I believe we've all had an experience, whether we consciously remember it or not. It's a spiritual journey that we're all having, and whether or not you call it astral traveling, lucid dreaming, things of that nature, we've all had some kind of experience like that causes our spirit to look at things in a different way, and in a more positive way, because all these people that have had these experiences, the vast majority, come back and say, "Hey, we need to be better stewards of the planet. We need to be better to one another. We need to be more loving." These are wonderful, wonderful things to embrace. And so, maybe eventually, with enough people get abducted, this planet will be a better place to live.
That would be nice. I think there's sometimes, and I was trying to explain to some people, I was actually helping someone else, thanks to Craig sending someone my way. So what happens is when you're abducted, and usually it's repeatedly through the line, generation after generation, there's reasons for it. As you get more used to it, if you can, or you're more accepting of what's taking place, they will slowly give you more and more information download, and you'll remember a bit more in there. You don't remember that, and even under hypnosis, because you weren't mentally prepared to deal with what you were going through at that point. So even under hypnosis, where they're trying to regress you and get you to that, your body is saying, no, I can't deal with it at this point. I'm not going to deal with this. And that's what usually happens. That's just from my research. But it's very interesting why some people care and some people, some people really care that they're getting abducted and they're doing the right thing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Get abducted?
Yes, the guy in the green in the back.
Yes.
Abduct him tonight, folks.
No, I was just thinking about it. Just popped in my head. What if that's one of the things for multiple abductions is you got too much. There was too much of a download, and so because I'm a cinephile, I'm a huge the shows, movies. Stargate had one where Jack he ends up touching the sphere, and the Asgardians, he gets all that information thrown in his brain. Well, they actually have to come and basically remove that information from him before he goes crazy. So I thought, what if it's in a way that's one of those things like when people really, you almost have like that hangover. What if that's part of the abduction process? Like maybe why they stop is they either realize you can't handle it, you can't do this thing, and they've come and they've actually taken part of that, and so that's why you have that hangover. You have that sudden like emptiness.
There many of the experiencers talk about the fact that they ask questions and then they're told, well, no, you're not ready to understand this, or you're not ready to handle this. Many things that they're not forthcoming with that information, and so perhaps they understand that it's a process that they have to go through to have certain things downloaded to these people, and they can't handle too much. That's certainly a possibility for sure, Craig. But I think that what we're dealing with here is an incredible situation that we just don't have a total handle on, if we have any handle on it at all.
So maybe Craig can recall this situation. When we had Joey Medea on, Joey said that he remember waking up, or he remember when he was abducted, they were saying, you're not ready, or you're not a candidate.
Not a good candidate.
Yeah, I don't remember verbatim what he said, but Craig just confirmed. So we had a guest on that was abducted, and he said that he remember hearing them saying, you're not a good candidate. You're not a good candidate. And then he woke up. He didn't remember anything. That was one of the guys that we had on our show.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. And you talk about the fact that these things are usually generational. If a person comes to us, we find out that, well, their parents have had experiences, or their grandparents have had experiences. And the latest research that Gary Nolan and Kit Green have done with regard to experiencers is that they found out that in their brain, the area between the caudate and the putamen in the brain, there's a lot more connections with the people that have these psychic abilities and telepathic abilities, and that these people are able to connect with other people that have the same thing going on. And I think that that is certainly generational, and they seem to be being followed by the aliens to understand their experiment that they started eons ago, how it's working. The latest thing I think is that our evolutionary process has been sped up, and we are eventually people without those more those connections in the caudate putamen area are going to eventually die out, and so that generation that has that psychic and telepathic ability will be the new humans. And so that's an interesting possibility.
Greg, if you get abducted, get the lottery numbers for me, please.
Yeah, that's right. And be like Edward Case, where he's just like that, get violently ill whenever you do it for personal gain. Yeah, then one of those things too, like we're going to go old school here with back in the 40s and 50s, and it's always been a question of mine. Do you think it was intentionally done or accidentally? Because about that time, you could almost make the case that we were given information technology that altered our course, because we go from the 30s. We're using transit. We're not using transistors. We're vacuum tubes. We're rudimentary thing. We don't have the stuff.
Yeah.
And then it almost seemed within like this short 1 or 2 year thing, technology just shot out, and we just completely left that tech behind, and we went a whole different way. And there wasn't really a logical progressional bridge between the two.
Well,
and do you think something occurred?
Yes, I absolutely believe something occurred. And, if you read Colonel Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, I met Corso before he passed away in Roswell at the 50th anniversary of the event. And I talked to him and I said, here you are, you're part of the Eisenhower administration, you're well respected, and you come out with a book that has some pretty incredible things that you've said about the fact that a lot of things were reverse engineered, such as the transistor, Velcro, night vision, multiple other things that came about soon thereafter. And he said to me, he says, you know what? He says, I wanted to get this out there so that the next generation, our grandchildren, will understand that this has occurred, that this is what happened. And he was in charge of, feeding these things out to the military industrial complex, like Bell Labs and other places. The transistor came out of Bell Labs. And the laser, that was another thing. And I've talked to a scientist that absolutely was vehemently opposed to the fact that Corso had anything to do with it, but in actuality, did he really know? Did he really know? And I believe Corso. I think that he was telling the truth, and that information was pulled out of that craft and reverse engineered, and that's why we are where we are today.
So you would definitely be in the kind of the camp that this was an accidental. The prime directive was not intentionally violated when it came to humanity.
Right.
It was just because that was one of the things I've always, when people talk about it, I'm like, you think about it, I mean, it's like you go from, we don't have even, I mean, we were still using blocks of ice for refrigeration, and then all of a sudden we've got refrigerant, you just go down the line of just all this stuff that happened about that time of the 40s and right in the 40s.
Can you imagine where we're going to be in another 50 years? Oh my God.
Well, we're approaching the singularity quick.
Here's the problem though. Way back when in Egypt and the Mayans and all these, civilizations, they weren't using transistors, they weren't using lasers, they weren't using any of this stuff. Their technology was fairly simplistic compared to all this higher end stuff we have now. So I've always had something in the back of my head, maybe like what we were given or reverse engineered really isn't where we should be. And we weren't given the good stuff. We were given enough just to get you by, like here, just take a little taste, try it, and see what we do with it. Yep.
That's an interesting point of view. It's possible, if they've been able to do what they did, in Egypt with those pyramids, and utilizing sound supposedly to manipulate these stones, and the craftsmanship that we to this day we can't figure out how they did it, or even the crystal skulls, some of them, how they could possibly have created those kind of things. There's a lot of mysteries. I mean, you look at Peru and Sacsayhuaman and those huge megalithic stones that fit together. It was like they almost looked like they were liquid at some point, and they just mushed them together. And it's so, how was that done? I mean, there's yeah,
we
it's
did an
phenomenal.
experiment on there was I wish I could have the video. I had it at one point where they actually showed how they could take any stone and literally cut it with the power of the sun.
Mm,
They were cutting
Mm.
through stones with the power of the sun. Very simplistic. You would never even think about what they were doing. A couple of the rocks, and it was as if you took a laser beam and and you just cut through, made a perfect joint, build them together, and it worked out perfectly.
wow, I'd love to see that video.
Yeah, it was on YouTube discussing because you were talking about the Peruvian temple,
Yeah, yeah.
and I remember seeing this, and I'm like, maybe this is how they they put this together, where
Yeah.
they put two rocks
There,
and back to back, and then they made the cut, and then they fit perfectly in. Who
mhm.
knows?
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I've always been enthralled with the fact that these these structures like at Machu Picchu,
Oh yeah,
yeah, exactly. I mean, look at that. That is incredible. That that just blows you away. And how the hell did this culture before the Mayans supposedly uh, able to do that? It's
it's virtually impossible. We can't even do that right now
no, exactly. We
Mm-mm.
unless
can't
you
do it.
actually just like pour. I mean, you can't stick a credit card through this. This is
No
so perfect.
piece
Tight.
of paper, not even a piece of
Nothing.
paper.
So
No.
the only way you can do that is if you would literally like you said, if it was liquid and they,
Yeah,
like you make brick and you put the brick on
yeah,
top of the brick and it
yeah,
forms, and then another brick
yeah.
forms.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's what
Pretty
I was thinking. Like, if we can do this with rocks and certain crystals, and clearly we can lift up and create these giant, structures,
Monolithic
and who knows what the
structures.
pyramids were actually used for the
I'm
most
back.
part. There you
yeah.
go. Maybe the technology with the lasers and the compact disc players and the this and that and whatever, maybe that wasn't meant to put us on that track. Maybe we're going on a track, and then that purposely deviated us to go this way so we wouldn't catch up. Because I think that a lot of reason why people get abducted on Earth is because we have the building blocks of life, which is our DNA. No one else has it. And it seems they desperately need our DNA to, you know, continue
Yeah.
their race.
And that's, there's a couple of theories about the fact that why, people are being abducted. It's the hybridization process that's going on where they're mingling our DNA with their DNA, supposedly, and that they need to do that in order to propagate their species because they can't procreate without that process.
Yep.
And then the other thing, which is not so nice, is the fact that they plan to peacefully, in this way, take over the planet. By eventually, you won't be able to tell them from us. In David Jacobs' latest book, he talks about hybrids, not hybrids, hybrids, that they look so much like you and I that you can't tell them apart.
Well,
So,
I used to know somebody whose daughter was definitely a hybrid,
mm,
and very talented, special. There's certain signs that give it away, and very large cranium, but these big, big eyes, like
mhm.
out of the normal, and on angles and bright blue, and it's your classic everything. And she's having visions of craft. She's seeing craft. Um, she says she's been, been visited so many times. I mean, it's your a classical hybridization,
Yeah.
but you know,
No, I tell you, once you start going down this rabbit hole, I
oh,
mean, it's like
Oh yeah.
it's like really amazing. But the bottom line is something is going on, and these people are not crazy. They're having experiences. Um, the latest thing I heard about somnambulism, people that sleepwalk, um, is that when they sleepwalk, they're in NREM, which is non-dreaming REM sleep. Um, and when these people come back, and they talk about the fact that they've had an experience. They've seen a large owl, or they've various things that they talk about. Well, they weren't dreaming. They were out there in the field, and this thing happened to them, and it wasn't a dream. It was an actuality that happened to them. So that's
Wow.
something that I just recently heard about. So that's very interesting.
Wow.
I've always, you brought up. I've always it's one of the things as I gotten into this. Why the owl? What was the significance of the owl?
Maybe that's a good question, and I don't have a good answer for you, other than the fact that the owl seems to be a figure that doesn't seem to be menacing in any way, shape, or form. I mean, when I see an owl, I get a feeling of pleasantness, relaxation. It's something that just it's not like a vulture or something. You see a vulture.
Some of them are really. There's a couple of huge owls. I've got the name. They look as close to a gray, like an albino gray, as possible. They're huge.
Yeah.
And Laura was like, the owl is seen as the messenger, and that could be. I just know growing up that you needed to hide your Tootsie Pops.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many licks does it take?
Yeah, keep those away from the owl. But yeah, it was just always one of those things. It's always like you could see the correlation between them, just like you said, the looks and all that stuff. But it was just always one of those things. What was it about? Project Blue Book. It was always a barn owl. You saw a barn owl. It was always tied to this growing up. And it never was actually figured out. It's like, of all things it could be, why was this one the animal that it was most closely always associated with?
Yeah, there's Mike Cleland just wrote a book about owls and experiences. You might want to check him out, bring him on your show. Mike Cleland.
I have to say it. Who?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Well, that's like that other joke where it's like,
I'll be on at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
I did that once. We were talking about the Owl Man. I said, we were talking about Dog Man and Ram Man and Owl Man. Who? Owl Man? Who? We're like, okay, enough.
Yeah, there's a TikTok video out there. It's like when the guy goes up to his boss. It's like, have you heard there's somebody that's been, this is basically being possessed by an owl? Who? And you're like, and he's like, oh, you son of a. Yeah, it's just like the setup. No, but that's one of the things too. Is like, as we're getting closer here on time too, it's just, reiterate as we're talking about these things. It's like, for the people, Reverend Michael Carter, we've had him on several times.
Oh, great.
And
good man.
one of the biggest things, like, I brought up with him too, and his line's always stuck with me. You go to these conventions and there's just a few flies in the buttermilk. It's what he'd say. And it's always been that thing. It's like, with the cultural differences, there's got to be more of these stories coming out of here. It's not just this one group that's the only one that's getting abducted. It's like these other ones, they've got to get out in sites like this one, like Opus. Hopefully, if you get the word out, some of these people can just drop, even if it's anonymous, just drop a saying, I saw this, we experienced this. There's going to be these things, and the more information that gets out there, the better this picture is going to start to form of what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I just recently, like within the last 2 weeks, interviewed John Ramirez, ex-CIA. And it was a fascinating interview, which you can see on our YouTube site, the Opus YouTube. You go to Opus, separate word, network on YouTube, and you'll look up John Ramirez. And his interview was amazing in the sense that he talked about the fact that within months, there's going to be an event that is going to basically leave no question that we're alone, not alone in the universe. And I've heard many people talk about certain events that are going to happen on a such and such a date, but supposedly he has it on very good. Um, yeah, there you go.
And you just picked up a subscriber.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that very much.
There you go.
That the next thing that going to be happening is that these people are going to. Yeah, you go down one more. I think you got John Ramirez. Yeah, the next one down there. There you
Right
go.
there.
Right there. And we've had almost I think 8,000 views on that particular one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's so I mean he talks about a lot of different things, but that particular tidbit kind of blew me away. That yeah, there's definitely going to be something very significant being put out there that's going to probably open up the can of worms even further.
Do you, real quick, just I don't want to get us too much on a tangent, like it breaks off into a whole nother conversation, but
Mhm.
do you think that has any ties to the Project Bluebeam? There's this other where you just that'll be sent out there, because it's almost in the same time frame. I mean, we're talking in the next couple of years is when they're really talking. I think it was like 2024, 2025 is when they were really talking that the possibility of a fake alien invasion type thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's talking months. He's not talking years. So I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with that. But it sounds like something fairly controlled, and not necessarily an alien invasion. So,
quick question regarding your interview and the organization.
Mhm.
What do you do to try to prevent being infiltrated by government agents who are there not for the goodwill of the people, but to get
Right.
information and
Well, I think
nefarious-
yeah, and I think there's probably nothing you can do, unfortunately. I think if in since 1994, I think I've had to kick 3 people out of our support group because they
Okay.
just got sideways with us in various ways. But and that came up as a discussion probably 2 or 3 months ago. As a matter of fact, that people were kind of wondering, who is really out there? Who, are they recording all this? Are they monitoring this in some way, shape, or form? And the answer is it's certainly possible. Um, but it seems like the overriding uh, uh, thing that's going on is that people are getting help, and we've had so many testimonials from people saying, thank you for what you guys do. It's really been helpful, and so that for me is such a plus, and
Yeah.
quite gratifying that we get that kind of feedback. But what we're doing tonight, sure, it's being monitored. What we do is being monitored. Matter of fact, people have said, have you had problems with government intervention or anything like that? And I said, no, I think we're doing them a great service. They don't have to deal with these people. We are.
Yeah, no, I wasn't taking it. There's some organizations that their intentions are great, but they've gotten infiltrated, and over time, it's become
Mm.
a super secret extension of
Oh,
dark projects, which are not
yeah.
in the best interest of things.
Right.
When people get abducted and they're having an interaction with another species, an alien species, and don't get me wrong, U.S. government has been abducting people under the guise of alien abductions for a long time now. With whatever they're doing with it, it gets unnerving.
Sure.
You worry
Sure.
about,
Yeah.
being
Yeah, like
visited.
Melinda Leslie, is a typical example of that. Matter of fact, she's one of our advisory board members, along with Linda Moulton Howe, who wrote the foreword to my book. Terry Lovelace is on there. Yvonne Smith. The bottom line on all this is that we're just trying to help people. and
yeah.
we're our whatever we have done research wise. The omega-3 study is on our website. You can go to our website and see the omega-3 study, the full study, and then and these are the people that are in our E.S.T. that he's showing. And then the latest, the phase 1 of the omega-4 study is also on our website, and the article and document section. And oh yeah, she's one of our board members, Geraldine Orozco. So, we're an open book. We're an open book. We're not trying to hide anything or
Oh yeah.
and like I say, what our mission is to help people having paranormal experiences, and that's it in a nutshell.
That's great.
That's really,
It's
no, it's,
amazing.
and I want to bring up the book again here too, so that way people can see that, so that way they can reach out and support you in that way too as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And all
Let's talk about that.
all the proceeds of the book go directly to OPUS. I don't get anything. It goes all to OPUS. That's my contribution to the cause. And the book covers a lot of territory. It certainly talks about how OPUS got started. It talks about the hybrid situation. It talks about implants. It talks about blood types. It talks about multiple aspects: the physical, the psychological aspects. I go into the government UAP report. I talk about the Nimitz situation as well, and those pilots seeing these tic tacs, and then we also have stories from people that are in our support group, and they tell their stories. And a couple of the stories, like in the very beginning, one of the stories is a couple. They were amateur pilots, and they were coming out of a park north of Santa Cruz, California, and they saw this object over the ocean, this bright light, and they see that it was getting bigger and bigger until it was over their head, and it was a triangular craft about the size of a small Learjet. And then they saw another light, and this object came in, and it was over their head. It was another triangular craft, and the first one they felt they were looking at it. The second one they felt it was looking at them. Long story short, they literally felt they were drifting out of the park. They got down to their car, and that's the last thing they remember for 3 hours, when they ended up at a restaurant, which is normally about 10 minutes away from where they are. They had no idea how
Wow.
they got there. And they came to one of our support group meetings, and they developed a rash after this event, and they couldn't figure out what it was. They had gone to 2 different doctors. They couldn't tell them what it was. And one of the people they showed this, they took a picture of it, and they showed it to the group, and almost without exception, they all said they had a similar rash at one time or another. And then one of the people in the group said, I think I know what that's from. And we said, okay, what do you think? It's a reaction to the fluid that they dip you in on board the craft to sanitize you. So, and I just recently talked to that couple. This is almost 30 years later when this happened, that she distinctly remembers being dipped in a fluid.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's
everybody's naked on the craft, by the way.
Yeah.
Just know that.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
hide anything, folks.
it's a space hippie commune.
Hippies.
No,
one of the things that is I always try to encourage is humor, because it releases a lot of tension and things like that I think is very positive. So I'm not being facetious. I absolutely believe it. It's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I just, while you were describing that one, and it's a good question for people. What do you think is the chance, like possibility that the Nimitz Tic Tac was a DARPA project. That this was actually us, and because it's one of those things, DARPA's not going to tell, a pilot in an aircraft carrier, they're not going to tell these people that are out there in the ocean that they've got their device, and so it's going to look alien. Because I've wondered about that. Just what do you think the possibility is of these things being more likely us over alien?
Well, if you believe the quote unquote government speak on this, is the fact that it's not us, it's not the Russians, it's not the Chinese. So then what? However, our government has lied to us before. I'm sure they're going to continue to lie to us, and that it could possibly be some kind of super secret project. And then they were, but the other factor is that you would think that based on what came out after that, that this could cause safety issues, and could cause a tragedy in some way, shape, or form, the way this whole thing went down. And so you would think that they would not want to do that if they were testing something. They would do this away from any ship or anything like that, and not kind of open their hand up, to the fact that they have something like that. So I tend to believe it's not DARPA in this case. I think this is a scenario that the whoever they are has decided that it's time to open this floodgate a little bit wider, and show us that hey. And I had lunch with Lou Elizondo right before the COVID shut everything down, and he was telling me that they believe that they understand how these craft operate, and that it's an interaction between the skin of the craft and a power source, and it's not element 115. He said it's a very small amount of energy that they utilize to basically manipulate time and space.
Wow.
Yep. It's creating a gravitational field around the actual object. You create your own gravity.
Yeah, and so you can do all kinds of crazy things and not worry about being squished.
Yep. And Craig, it's been nice knowing you since you talked about DARPA. It's been a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We actually need to do another show on it now that we're getting better at this.
Chris, you got the helm.
Yeah. Good luck. They've already trying to knock me out. For anybody that's watching live, you should see all the technical issues I'm having over here. I'm trying to knock my phone off of the tripod and everything.
What's happening too is that my screen goes black every once in a while. I don't know if
that's what mine's doing. It's just it keeps timing out, and I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I've never had that happen on StreamYard. Never had that happen on StreamYard.
My Tommy Boy shirt is apparently cursed when it comes to the show. I need to quit wearing Callahan Auto parts.
Well, I'm not even gonna lie. I guess they thought I was the nerd of the podcast when we first started. I used to get kicked out like right into 20 minutes in. Kicked me out.
We just said that you wouldn't put your quarters in the machine like a cheap hotel.
The old vibrating bed thing. Huh?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like your quarter operated internet. You got to go put the quarters in.
Yeah. Get zapped either way. I've been pretty good so far and haven't gotten zapped.
Well, Lester, man, I really appreciate you coming on, sir. As I said, it's been an honor. It's like like Opus. As I said, we subscribed. Everybody go check it out. Subscribe, network. We got those on there too. Again, it's just fantastic website.
Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here with you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and I really thank you for what you guys do. It's very important that you're opening up the world to these kind of topics, and so I thank you so much. And if you ever want me back, I'd be happy to be here.
Well, all right, we'll definitely reach out, because like I said, I think we can come up with a show.
Applause. We're going to give Les a round of applause. So thank you, Les.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's-
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, everybody, go get that book, support them, go subscribe,
Yes.
like I said, to their channel, and then go check out that website. You can join their mailing list, and you can be caught up there. And most of life, if you guys have seen something, you have something that you've been unwilling to share, they have that thing. Get support. Click those buttons.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Reach
it.
out to them. You're welcome. Have a great night, sir.
Hey, you guys too.
Bless.
Take care.
All right,
Bye-bye.
we're gonna cover the mistake I made in the beginning. This show is brought to you by A.R.T Radio, our sponsor, which I forgot to say in the very beginning of the show. Brought to you by Ron. There at A.R.T Radio. Go to E.R.T Radio. See Mixler.com. Set up your account there, and you can subscribe. Listen to A.R.T Radio, where you can find shows like ours, Into the Outer Realms, Uncensored with David and Maureen, Dimensions of the Supernatural. We're rebroadcast there every Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern time. We follow Into the Outer Realms with Joey, where I moonlight occasionally, and so I have my extra show there. So definitely, here's that Mixler.com, E.R.T Radio, A.R.T Radio. Check them out. Thanks again for personally, I just, guys, blown away. Thank you so much for the stars tonight. That was fantastic. You know, just Jackie, Laura, it's Harlan. I just wanted to promote it, for just being a subscriber. Thank you guys, everybody, for the support. That really helps pay for the show. Keep, maybe might help give me a tech class. I can figure out how to operate my phone, so that way I don't keep dropping off on the screen. Do this, get this thing. But hey, what can we do? But thanks. Check us out on social media. Like, subscribe, get us to that magical 1,000 subscriber thing. Same way with O.P.U.S Network. Get them to the magical 1,000 mark there too. I think they're sitting at 780 or 781 now, thanks to us. So let's get them the rest there. That opens up the world, because then they can go live. They can do live shows on YouTube and stuff, which is fantastic. Yeah. So you're welcome. Amazon.com, support there. You can find Sir Brian S. Bowden, however you want to pronounce it. He'll still say yes, and and he'll also remind you, I am a Sir, I am a Templar, I am part of the Illuminati, I am part of the Illuminati, the Freemasons. They're taking over the world.
Sign me up.
We don't even do that at the we don't do any of that. We have like spaghetti dinners.
Wait a minute. They're gonna find the treasure at Curse of Oak Island. The Oak Island treasure.
Well, I know it's like even here in our local one, the towns around here. One of those black and white tiles. It's like those games when you slide them a certain way, all of a sudden that magical staircase will. And then you can just go down to the antechamber. Yeah.
He's gonna.
I'm gonna be over there,
Brian. When he gets, there, like, this is it. Yeah.
They're gonna invite me over there. What I'm gonna think is, it was some old guy that just brought the column and just set it in there, for their meeting. But I'm gonna be over there. I'm gonna be trying to find the hollow spot in the column so I can pull something out.
These meetings.
Brian, they're gonna be like, why the hell is this weirdo looking at the column like?
Yeah.
I'm like, there's got to be that secret panel that's going to find Benjamin Franklin's glasses, which is going to help me decode.
When they join, this is it. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it.
Is this all we're going to do? Is drink Michelob and have spaghetti?
It's kind of like Rodney Dangerfield back to school.
That's too many carbs. There's too many carbs.
That's right. Well, that's why you got to have the Michelob Ultra to counteract the carbs.
Got to have the 33 carbs.
Yeah. See, 33. I see what you did there. See, that is the drink. We just got a secret, folks.
Yes,
that is the secret of the Masons, the 33rd carb.
Here's another secret. If you're a guy, put down the toilet seat so your wife doesn't get upset.
Oh, that's awesome. That statue's awesome.
Cool. That's great. That's a great bust. Oh, you're leader.
Awesome. But everybody go support Les Velez and the rest of the people there at O.P.U.S. I really appreciate it, sir. You guys have a great night. We will see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys. See you.
Right.
Thank you.